Hello, my name is Elder Price, and I would like to share with you the most amazing book. Hello, my name is Elder Grant. It's a book about America a long, long time ago. It has so many awesome parts, you simply won't believe how much this book can change your life. Hello, my name is Elder Green. I would like to share with you this book of Jesus Christ. Hello, my name is Elder Young. Hello, did you know that Jesus lived here in the USA? You can read all about it now. Hello, in this nifty book, it's free. No, you don't have to pay. Hello, hello, my name is Elder Smith, and can I leave this book with you for you to just peruse?
Well, hello. My name is Doug Bundy, and I'm here. I used to be Elder Bundy, but now your host on this show, Voices from the Dust TV, for Thursday, the 4th day of September, 2014. We welcome you to our show where we share the reason for the hope that is within us, the reason why the Latter-day Saints are Christians, and the reason why you should be too. Our message not only explains what distinguishes LDS Christian doctrine from non-LDS Christian doctrine, but also why we declare that the only salvation remaining for the Gentiles is for them to repent and to be baptized, and thus to be identified in the same covenant and to worship at the same altar as Israel. We've discussed this in our past episodes for more than a year now, Voices from the Dust, both radio and TV, and you can access those from our website, voicesfromthedust.org. Just go there, voicesfromthedust.org, click on the menu item TV, and there you can watch the program live in the player, or you can scroll down below the player and find by month, categorized by month, our past episodes. So you're welcome to do that. There's also links there for our social media versions. You can click on the YouTube channel link or the Google Plus page link or our Facebook page link, which are all will take you to those, and they're all entitled Voices from the Dust. Okay, well, yes, last week, today we're in the theme. You know, we've divided up each day's program, the 5 days of the week that we're on the air, into these 5 themes: the controversies of Zion, the truths of Zion, the land of Zion, the enemies of Zion, and also then the prophets of Zion. So today's Thursday, and our theme for today is the enemies of Zion, and we're going to be talking about what the watchmen, who were supposed to be watching for the enemy of Zion, would have seen had they built the tower and been on top of it. So that's going to be interesting. You'll remember last week, this is actually the third in this series of the enemies of Zion. In the first one, we talked about of course, the chief enemy and how Lucifer fell, and that's all pretty much explained in chapter 14 of Isaiah. Then also a week later, which was last week on the enemies of Zion, we talked about how he had gone among the children of men after they were taught the plan of salvation from Adam, that the Lord had given him and instructed him to teach his children, and he said, believe it not, and they believed it not, and they loved Satan more than they loved God, and he introduced these secret combinations beginning with Cain, and they were instituted by him, founded by him, in order to capture men's souls and drag them down to hell, because by agreeing to cover for each other, they could get away with murder and every other kind of sin and abomination. And so for this reason, these secret combinations are the most abominable thing in the sight of God. the voices of the dust tell us. So today we're going to be learning a little bit about that. Now, we've got two guests that we're happy to have here. My brother Roy, who's been with me for the whole year in our or more that we've been doing this off and on. And then we have our relatively new guest, Andrew. And so we want to welcome them here this morning. You guys want to say hello?
Hey there, how you doing, Doug?
Hi, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me.
We've got a good one lined up here if we can pull it off without any technical problems.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be...
Oh, good morning to everybody. I'm out here in my yard, as you can see.
Yeah, well,
didn't comb my hair though.
I just I saw something, I don't know where it was on the internet, that was saying that a study has shown that if you want to increase your energy, many times over, if you go out and sit underneath a tree where trees are growing, and you can hear the rustle of the wind in the leaves and the natural sounds of birds and whatnot, it will just increase your energy tremendously. So,
well, Doug, you heard the birds yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that one time, yeah, when a hawk came screaming over, scared me to death because I didn't know you were online, and I didn't know where it was coming from. But yeah, that was amazing. But maybe we ought to have our show out underneath a tree or something instead of in these stuffy houses.
Yeah.
Well, glad you guys are here. We're going to start off our Whispers Out of the Ground. Is what we call our chapters as we go through the Book of Mormon here. Today, it's chapter 14. Man, this Alma has been tremendous. We've heard some amazing sermons preached by Alma and Amulek, and of course 14 or 15 others before them who were doing the same thing in an amazing way. And we were remarking how if Joseph Smith had to make this up by himself, he would have had to make up all these first-person sermons, and he, being a wicked and idolatrous man, as they claim him to be, idolatrous, I guess, but adulterous especially, and all the things that they accuse him of being, a money digger and lazy and indolent and didn't want to work. he would have really been put to task to come up with all this stuff, because I'll tell you, this mental work is hard.
Yeah, don't they? What do they say? He was a treasure digger and a magician, and he had a lot of time, evidently. And
yeah. These guys were supporting him, I guess, huh? Well, anyway, it's obvious to anybody with the Spirit of God that nobody could have written these things out of whole cloth, made them up, especially a wicked man who was trying to deceive the world. It's just like in the days of the Jews. They said that the unbelieving Jews said Jesus was working the miracles that he was working by the power of Beelzebub, by the power of the devil. Well, that's crazy. Jesus told him, hey, you're really not thinking this thing through very well, because a house divided against itself can't stand. So why would a deceiver like Joseph Smith, who's trying to lead people to hell, be able to deliver them the Word of God in trying to do that like we've never heard it before? No, doesn't make any sense. Well, anyway, let me share this with you guys, and then this is the text, and then I'll play the sound here.
And it came to pass, after he had made an end of speaking unto the people, Many of them did believe on his words, and began to repent and to search the Scriptures. But the more part of them were desirous that they might destroy Alma and Amulek, for they were angry with Alma because of the plainness of his words unto Zeezrom. And they also said that Amulek had lied unto them, and had reviled against their law, and also against their lawyers and judges. And they were also angry with Alma and Amulek. And because they had testified so plainly against their wickedness, they sought to put them away privily. But it came to pass that they did not. But they took them and bound them with strong cords, and took them before the chief judge of the land. And the people went forth and witnessed against them, testifying that they had reviled against the law and their lawyers and judges of the land, and also of all the people that were in the land, and also testified that there was but one God, and that he should send his Son among the people, but he should not save them. And many such things did the people testify against Alma and Amulek. Now this was done before the chief judge of the land. And it came to pass that Zeezrom was astonished at the words which had been spoken. And he also knew concerning the blindness of the minds, which he had caused among the people by his lying words. And his soul began to be harrowed up under a consciousness of his own guilt. Yea, he began to be encircled about by the pains of hell. And it came to pass that he began to cry unto the people, saying, Behold, I am guilty, and these men are spotless before God. And he began to plead for them from that time forth. But they reviled him, saying, Art thou also possessed with the devil? And they spit upon him, and cast him out from among them, and also all those who believed in the words which had been spoken by Alma and Amulek. And they cast them out, and sent men to cast stones at them. And they brought their wives and children together, and whosoever believed or had been taught to believe in the word of God, they caused that they should be cast into the fire. And they also brought forth their records, which contained the Holy Scriptures, and cast them into the fire also, that they might be burned and destroyed by fire. It came to pass that they took Alma and Amulek, and carried them forth to the place of martyrdom, that they might witness the destruction of those who were consumed by fire. And when Amulek saw the pains of the women and children who were consuming in the fire, he also was pained, and he said unto Alma, How can we witness this awful scene? Therefore, let us stretch forth our hands and exercise the power of God which is in us, and save them from the flames. But Alma said unto him, The Spirit constraineth me, that I must not stretch forth mine hand. For behold, the Lord receiveth them up unto himself in glory. And he doth suffer that they may do this thing, or that the people may do this thing unto them according to the hardness of their hearts, that the judgments which he shall exercise upon them in his wrath may be just. And the blood of the innocent shall stand as a witness against them, yea, and cry mightily against them at the last day. Now Amulek said unto Alma, Behold, perhaps they will burn us also. And Alma said, Be it according to the will of the Lord. But behold, our work is not finished, therefore they burn us not. Now it came to pass that when the bodies of those who had been cast into the fire were consumed, and also the records which were cast in with them, the chief judge of the land came and stood before Alma and Amulek as they were bound, and he smote them with his hand upon their cheeks, and said unto them, After what ye have seen, will ye preach again unto this people, that they shall be cast into a lake of fire and brimstone? Behold, ye see that ye had not power to save those who had been cast into the fire, neither has God saved them, because they were of thy faith. And the judge smote them again upon their cheeks, and asked, What say ye for yourselves? Now this judge was after the order and faith of Nehor, who slew Gideon. And it came to pass that Alma and Amulek answered him nothing. And he smote them again, and delivered them to the officers to be cast into prison. And when they had been cast into prison 3 days, there came many lawyers and judges and priests and teachers who were of the profession of Nehor. And they came in unto the prison to see them, and they questioned them about many words, but they answered them nothing. It came to pass that the judge stood before them and said, Why do ye not answer the words of this people? Know ye not that I have power to deliver you up unto the flames? And he commanded them to speak, but they answered nothing. And it came to pass that they departed and went their ways, but came again on the morrow. And the judge also smote them again on their cheeks. And many came forth also, and smote them, saying, Will ye stand again and judge this people, and condemn our law? If ye have such great power, why do ye not deliver yourselves? And many such things did they say unto them, gnashing their teeth upon them, and spitting upon them, and saying, How shall we look when we are damned? And many such things, yea, all manner of such things did they say unto them, and thus they did mock them for many days. And they did withhold food from them, that they might hunger, and water, that they might thirst. And they also did take from them their clothes, that they were naked, and thus they were bound with strong cords, and confined in prison. And it came to pass, after they had thus suffered for many days, and it was on the 12th day, in the 10th month, in the 10th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, that the chief judge over the land of Ammonihah and many of their teachers and their lawyers went in unto the prison where Alma and Amulek were bound with cords. And the chief judge stood before them, and smote them again, and said unto them, If ye have the power of God, deliver yourselves from these bands, and then we will believe that the Lord will destroy this people according to your words. And it came to pass that they all went forth and smote them, saying the same words, even until the last. And when the last had spoken unto them, the power of God was upon Alma and Amulek. And they rose and stood upon their feet. And Alma cried, saying, How long shall we suffer these great afflictions, O Lord? O Lord, give us strength according to our faith which is in Christ, even unto deliverance. And they broke the cords with which they were bound. And when the people saw this, they began to flee, for the fear of destruction had come upon them. And it came to pass that so great was their fear, that they fell to the earth, and did not obtain the outer door of the prison. And the earth shook mightily, and the walls of the prison were rent in twain, so that they fell to the earth. And the chief judge, and the lawyers, and priests, and teachers, who smote upon Alma and Amulek, were slain by the fall thereof. And Alma and Amulek came forth out of the prison, and they were not hurt, for the Lord had granted unto them power according to their faith which was in Christ. And they straightway came forth out of the prison, and they were loosed from their bands, and the prison had fallen to the earth, and every soul within the walls thereof, save it were Alma and Amulek, was slain. And they straightway came forth into the city. Now the people, having heard a great noise, came running together by multitudes to know the cause of it. And when they saw Alma and Amulek coming forth out of the prison, and the walls thereof had fallen to the earth, they were struck with great fear, and fled from the presence of Alma and Amulek, even as a goat fleeth with her young from two lions. And thus they did flee from the presence of Alma and Amulek.
Whoa, pretty dramatic. In fact, that's an understatement. Very moving and dramatic. And you just see those people burning up, the women and children burning in your mind. It's amazing, and it just moves me. It's, and of course it goes on. We'll see tomorrow. But man, do you have anything you'd like to add, guys?
Yeah, I would.
Go ahead, Roy.
Let me take my face off of here. Well, I'm just, when things really get bad, you know what I mean? Because we're going to, when you're dealing with all these different things that are happening now, hopefully we're righteous enough that the Lord will hear our cries and come to our rescue.
Yeah, those are thoughts that come to your mind. I mean, you see the parallel of in our own day. We've pointed out before how many of the scriptures that we're listening to and these whisper out of the ground, things are paralleling the things that we're talking about. Like yesterday, we saw how it talked about the Son of God, just in the order of the Son of God, just as we had been talking about it the day before. And now here we're talking about the struggle between the righteous and the wicked, which is, like you said, it's coming upon us really fast. Boy, these guys were hard, weren't they? Man. And that's, the exact same thing happening today. They're not using fire yet, but they're chopping heads off left and right. Did you want to say anything, Andrew?
Oh yeah, that's a good point, Roy. That's yeah. We hope we can you know crush the what is it? It was lo they loosed their bands. I mean, you can't imagine what kind of bands they got now with the New World Order and the military-industrial complex. They probably got these, super laser bands that wrap you around your whole body. So we can imagine that back then those were probably some pretty hardcore bands as well, and they were able to have enough faith in the Lord that he was able to deliver them. And he also I really like the part about where those that died at the hands of the secret combination were able to be witnesses. And who were they to be witnesses to? To me, those that died in the pit, it was a pit of fire, right? They were.
I'm sorry?
When those that were the witnesses to the secret combination that died.
Yeah.
I really like that.
You said women and children, yeah, of those who had believed. Evidently, a lot of them, because the lawyer Zeezrom believed as well, and he was trying to stand up for him when they cast him out, and they cast out all those who believed in him and sent people to throw stones at him, and then they took their women and children and burned them. I mean, it
is brutal. I think that they witnessed to the other people there in that time, but most definitely witnessed for us as well, so that we can say, oh wow, I mean, look at the faith we can have, like Roy said. That witness was for us right now as we read it, and then we see it around.
Yeah, and then see here the criticism is the Christians here in this country are not, out in the streets and over the pulpits. They're not preaching, fire and brimstone against these people who are beheading Christians and who are pouring over the border. I mean, it's just like to do the same thing here. It's just like we're, just like we're sheeple. We see it and we just we don't. It's unbelievable. I think it's because we're drugged by fluoride. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they drug the water, and then they give us American Gladiators. They give us 55 channels of American Gladiators, and hey, watch this, and don't look over here, but watch this. A bunch of reality TV and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you have that video. We're going to go on to our awful situation. We can play that if you want to cue it up.
Okay,
but I'm going to explain to folks here what we have, why we call it our awful situation, and see if I can find it here. I didn't exactly have it ready.
You want me to play the?
I'll just cue it up right now. Bring it up and pause it, and let me explain to people that the reason we call this feature our awful situation is because we're in an awful situation, and people are watching, as you said, these gladiator games. What happens is that very same situation that we saw there, where Alma was preaching against these people with the knee whores, he says, well, they were called knee whore because of this secret combination that they had entered into, which the voices from the dust tell us that was founded by the devil, and that we've been studying here on the enemies of Zion for the last 2 weeks. And these knee whores were those who had entered in, you see, to this secret society in order to be able to get gain. And so they were, of course, very angry at the gospel being preached. They didn't want the truth of the gospel to be preached at all. And they then of course we're very, very hardened, and that's the same way that we find ourselves today, only on a larger scale, much larger scale. It's a worldwide scale where the globalists, they care nothing for the lives of people. They will burn, and they're getting ready to chop heads off here as they're chopping heads off there, and because they want to actually reduce the population of the earth. As we read in Ether chapter 8, the Lord said we shouldn't suffer them to get above us. Well, he says we would be able to recognize them because they would be combined to overthrow the freedom of all lands, nations, and countries, and they would also seek to bring to pass the destruction of all men. So you can find out about that by going to our situation update. Go to our website. Here, I'll share it with you. And if you go to our website,
sorry, yeah, go ahead.
if you go to our website here, voicesfromthedust.org, and then the several items, here's TV, and then here's situation update, and there are others that we've talked about. But on this situation update, you will find a list of videos that are that you would be able to watch, and that will bring you up to speed. We're going to be hearing here in a minute from Guerrilla V, the guerrilla economist, but here in this instance he was a guest on Caravan to Midnight. Then here's Gerald Celente, and he's talking here about the Second American Revolution and what the oligarchs are doing, and then so on. There's lots of them, and then there's full-length ones that you can get to here by this clicking on this link for the background briefing videos, and those are very good to give you an understanding of the banksters, of the vaccines, of the chemtrails, of the GMO, of the political corruption, and the police state, all kinds of things that are very important for you to understand. So you can go to find them in one place here. So now what we want to do, though, is play this. This is a rather old one. Normally in these current events we have things that are updated to the present time, and so that you will be able to keep up with the current events. But this particular one that we want to play today was actually very important, but it's back. It comes back. Excuse me. It was actually a report that was done in February of 2014, right? And so Andrew has it here and is going to play it for us now. So go ahead, Andrew. Let's have that, if you will, share that, play that video and share it, and let's see what he's saying here. We won't probably play it all. I'll tell you when we should cut it off. Oh, I guess I need to take my share off so that we can see your share. Okay. Is it coming up? We're not seeing anything. We're not hearing you either. Oh boy. Oh, you're muted. I don't know how that happened.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, well ahead of him. He is the guerrilla economist. He is somebody who's earned the stars on his shoulder, the scars from battle. Folks, his bona fides are on roguemoney.net,
Are
as
you
well
the
as
video screen too? Or?
www.com.
Are you getting it?
No, we're not seeing it.
Yeah, it should be.
You got to share it.
Yeah, I thought I did. There, here, let me do it again. All right, should be coming up here.
This is not somebody who should be taken lightly. He predicted many things, including the cleaning house of bankers. That in fact, he predicted that, or said that was beginning to happen on the 10th, and well ahead of the January 10th. As a matter of fact, well ahead of what was going on. So with that, we're going to bring V on. V, welcome to the program. Go ahead and start us off, my brother.
Well, it's great to be on tonight, guys. Steve, Joe, and Doug, it's a pleasure. Once again, I mean, things are transpiring so quickly, and we are really, I mean, I often say at the precipice, but, man, I mean, things have gotten so beyond the point that we are, folks, at a critical juncture, probably the most critical juncture as we are continuing on in this collapsing economy. Structures are breaking. I remember back on January the 10th, I was at another venue. It was actually Paul Sandhu's radio show over in Canada, where I was talking about multinational banks and how they are intermarried with intelligence agencies. And that's one of the things I touched upon. I touched upon also back in November 20th that, you know, there's going to be a cleaning house that's going to occur, and you're going to see hit teams in full action taking on mid-level guys. And that's what exactly has been transpiring. My sources have indicated that there have been quite a few people to help, about 3 dozen or so that are on that list. And as these numbers begin to increase, folks, this is a sign, this is a major sign that we are close to the end. And there are some pundits out there that have said, well, you know what, bankers, committing suicide, that happens as the economy is going down. Well, the fact is, folks, the last time we've had bankers commit suicide by jumping out of the window of their buildings or trade houses and their skyscrapers back in the 20s, that was after a market crash. This is the first time in history where you have a large number of individuals all of a sudden committing suicide, quote unquote, and the market's going up 6, 7, 8%. So this is unprecedented. These things are just not your typical traders. These are men who are in very lofty, very high positions. These are individuals that know certain things. They are very keen to certain goings-ons in the bank. There are individuals that will be privy to certain deals, certain negotiations, certain trades that have passed through their desk or seen skirting across their computer screen. So this is not just a mere trader who made bets on a few stocks, hedged a couple of wrong bets, and all of a sudden his investment, the bet goes down south and he jumps out the window. No. This is far much more than that. And this has everything to do with a dying, decrepit system that is called the Anglo-American banking system. Okay, that is called, this whole thing is collapsing in front of us. And so this is what we're seeing right now, the cleaning house. And I'm going to try my best to get into that. There are certain things tonight that I will tell you, certain things that I cannot tell you. And I will try my best to show you. We're all excited. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that are listening right now to my voice, and you're wondering about names and who's involved and all these things. And these things are nice to know, but we cannot lose sight of the big picture. And the big picture is that I'm going to really showcase for you, because this is just a microcosmic symptom of a big picture and a major global paradigm shift that is going on. And that shift, folks, is what I'm going to show you, is the death and destruction of not only the United States dollar, but the entire Western banking system is being thrown out the window. And these are all symptomatic reverberations of actions that are taken abroad that are finally coming home to roost. So tonight is going to be an exciting program as I try to detail clearly what's going on and where we're headed. And that's important for all of you to know. Because if there's one thing that I want all of you to know, is that if you have not taken steps in order to preserve your wealth, if you have not taken those steps in order to ensure your financial survival and those of your families, folks, you got to do that quickly. And that is the most important thing, that we all are going to be prepared for the greatest economic transition in global history, the likes of which have never been seen, and probably the likes of which we will never see again. Not to this level and not to this state. Most of all, I'm going to show you what happens when a country becomes so blinded by its own...
let's just cut it off there, Andrew. I'd like to play the whole thing, but it would take the whole program, because it's really amazing. And what he said there was true, because all these, 30 or so bankers, I can't remember how many of them, there were so many of them, they stopped, I think, reporting them. They were jumping out of buildings, they were shooting them, they're blowing their heads off, they were doing all these things, and it was called suicide. It was ridiculous. Of course, it wasn't suicide, but it was the indication of what was happening among themselves there. They were murdering people who knew too much about what was going on as this thing starts to come apart. But again, the United States is going down by design. This is what they had intended. So it's not the Illuminati families that are committing suicide. It's the lower level managers that got caught up in this, that they are taking out. But the Lord commanded the saints to build a watchtower in the midst of his vineyard of 12 trees. You remember in section 101 of the Doctrine and Covenants, he gives us a parable, he says, so that we can understand his mind and will concerning the redemption of Zion. So all of this has to do with the redemption of Zion, and we really need to understand it. In the parable, his servants started to build this tower, this watchtower, but they never finished it. They started arguing among themselves, saying it really wasn't needed because it was a time of peace. Well, the time of war came, of course. This was a big mistake, a huge mistake. For had they built it, they would have been able to see the enemy making preparations for his attack, and they would have been able to make ready and to prevent the vineyard from falling into the hands of the destroyer, the Lord said. So, but today, as we study this, and as we have mentioned in our previous programs this week, we can see it's clearly coming to pass in our day. And actually, and we're not the only ones, we could pull up people out there who know nothing about this parable, who know nothing about the redemption of Zion that the saints expect, but they too are saying that it's too late. That this very guy, this V. Guerrilla economist, and his partner here, Steve Quayle, which we didn't hear come on, but they are saying, and others are saying, that it's over. It's, we're past the point of no return, and our fate is mathematically certain, just as was the fate of the Titanic when it hit the iceberg, and the engineer was able to get an estimate of the damage, and he saw how many bulkheads had been compromised, and then he knew there was nothing. The pumps couldn't pump water fast enough. It was going to go down. It was a mathematical certainty that she shall flounder, he said. Well, it's the same with the USS America. You know, there are many people on deck that don't realize how serious it is. There's more and more now, but the enemy has come as a thief in the night and is about to scatter the servants abroad, as we hear or as we see in the parable that will happen. And once the servants flee, then the enemy breaks down the 12 trees, which are the 12 apostles. Well, that's what I've been saying. In Joseph's sermon that we were studying yesterday, he said it was 12 stakes of Zion. I don't know, maybe it's the 12 stakes that are in and around Washington, D.C. I don't know. It's amazing because now we have thousands of stakes around the world. So maybe you didn't understand that part, but the fact is that they will be broken down. And all this according to modern day revelations of the Latter-day Saints. Well, so the question is, who is this enemy, and why does he want to attack the vineyard of the Lord, to take upon him the fruit of the vineyard, which is what the Lord says in the Revelation? Well, we've been talking about it, as I said. We've seen that the ultimate enemy is Lucifer, son of the morning, who is well described in Isaiah chapter 14. And he was before Adam, and he came to Adam and Eve, and we all know that story. But we've learned a great deal more about him as the voices from the dust explain to us how he persuades men to enter into secret combinations, to murder and to get gain and to do whatever wickedness they want without ever getting caught or being brought to justice for their crimes. And this was called the secret of Master Mayhem in the ancient scriptures. And we found that it was unexpectedly confirmed by Anton LaVey, the head of the Church of Satan, in this article I was reading early in the 70s. But I haven't been able to find it. I can't prove it to anybody, and I don't know if he got it from the Latter-day Saints. I just find it incredible that he would have been reading the scriptures, the Mormon scriptures, and would have picked that up. But of course, it's been in the Mormon scripture since they came out in the time of Joseph Smith in the 1800s. So, but here he is saying this is part. Master Mayhem was the European royalty that he was talking about, and he was complaining that the everyday criminal wanted to be part of it. He said, "You don't know what you're talking about. This is much greater than you can be part of." And so it was these secret combinations that destroyed previous civilizations in America. That's the message, see, that we're trying to get out. And the Nephites and the Jaredites, we hear the story. People won't read it, or of course many people do, but especially the opinion makers, the talk show hosts in the Patriot movement, we can't get them to read and understand it. And it would really go a long ways if we could, but they reject it because they are Gentile Christians who have been taught, and their minds have been blinded and their hearts have been hardened into believing that the Latter-day Saints are some kind of a weird cult, that they serve, that their Jesus is a different Jesus, not the Jesus of the Bible, and so on. But these secret combinations have destroyed, according to the voices of the dust, the previous civilizations in America, the Nephites and the Jaredites, and they warn us that it will prove the destruction of our Western civilization if they're allowed to overcome enough of our citizens, seducing them with the riches and the lusts of the flesh, as the previous people who now cry out to us from their graves were seduced. So anyway, Alex Jones has a lot of insight into this. I don't see people really able to explain this. He's gotten to the point, he understands it so well, he can look people in the eyes and tell if they're part of it. It's amazing. He can see it in their countenance that they're part of this corruption, and that they think they're going to be able, when everything comes down, to come out good because they're on the side of evil. But it's them that are going to be destroyed first, according to Alex Jones, because it's always the way it's been since the days of Hitler and others in modern times. So it's important for us to understand how the global elite, these extremely wealthy and royal families of the earth, have gained control of key financial, economic, political, military, educational, and religious institutions of our civilization. And they've done this in a determination to overthrow the freedom of all lands, nations, and countries, and to bring to pass the destruction of all people. Well, that is really the essence. We get that from the voices from the dust. And so we should be awake. And had we had that tower, had the Latter-day Saints had that tower that the Lord commanded them to build, they would have been studying these things. They would have been studying the things in heaven and on earth and under the earth. They would have been studying the things of the past and of the things that were to come to pass today, and also those that were shortly to come to pass, the future. They would have begun to understand, and they would have taught each generation coming up, right? And there, I would imagine, I've tried to think about this, but I would have imagined that they would have had branches, so to speak, of the Council of the 50 in every city where they could have established it. And they would have seen and understood long before people understood the stupidity. And it's not stupidity, it's an evil purpose behind this common core. And there would have been people like Charlotte Isery, who was on the inside and saw what they were doing, probably invited into the Council of the 50 meeting to teach them about that in our day, because we would have been alerted from previous generations of the Council of the 50 that would have known. Now it's called 50 because the Council of the 12 were standing members, and the first presidency were standing members. So you would have those 15 standing members in each generation. But the rest of the 50 or so people could have been anybody, including politicians, including engineers who understood things, including historians that understood things, you know, but they would have had to have been righteous. And if they're part of the Council of the 50, when the Council of the 50 took action, they would have to be, it has to be unanimous. Their decisions have to be unanimous, or else the person would, who was not willing to agree would have to withdraw. See, now that's an amazing thing to happen. But that way there would have been a consensus of what they were seeing, of what they were being taught by historians, and they would have been able to see how those bankers had been, and the elite had been fooling people since way before, since the days of Napoleon. And you know that, do you know that story, Andrew, where Rothschild got so rich by getting the word that the English had defeated the armies of Napoleon, but he managed to get the opposite message, and so
Wait, are you saying that the secret combinations, they control the TV too? No way. Yeah, I have heard that. Yeah, you know,
what happened was that because his messengers got him the word. There weren't no TV, of course, in those days, but there were messengers, and he could afford the best messengers, the swiftest and whatnot, and so he knew what was going on before the masses and before the investors, and so they thought that the English had lost, and man, they were panicked, right? And so down goes the stock market, and he buys it all up at fire sale prices, and cashes in, and then of course the word comes that the English had actually won, and the French had been defeated, and
That
owns
was
all this stock, whose value then suddenly goes back up, and that's what they do. See, they do
that
things.
wasn't that Meyer Amschel? That was
Yeah,
Meyer.
it probably was. I thought it was Rothschild, but I
Yeah,
don't know
no,
which one.
It was Meyer Rothschild. You know, one of the early ones, one of the main ones that then began to start the Federal Reserve. But what it reminded me of when you were talking about the 50, the Council of 50, it reminded me of Ezra Taft Benson, which was a prophet for the LDS Church in from 1980 to about 1993. Is that right?
Uh, I can't remember exactly.
Okay, well, like in the 80s, and he, in the 50s and the 60s, was actually under Eisenhower, was Secretary of Agriculture. And my dad and I were actually talking about this past weekend, that he was invited personally by Eisenhower to become the Secretary of Agriculture, and really most of the people in the government did not want Ezra Taft Benson in there because they knew his background with the John Birch Society and his libertarian leanings, free market and constitutional leanings, and so. But Eisenhower could see, and Eisenhower was the one that warned the American people about the military-industrial complex at the end of his presidency. But we did have Ezra Taft Benson warning on a tower, you know, on maybe a half-built tower in the 60s and 70s, because he was inside there. He talked to Khrushchev. Khrushchev said, "You guys are going to have you guys are going to have it fed to you so slowly that eventually you'll wake up one day and you'll be fully communist," basically.
Yeah, what he said. See, he was really mad and upset with Eisenhower and tried to talk him out of having Khrushchev visit the United States. But Khrushchev came, and of course they wanted to know about the agricultural, because the United States power of agriculture was just world renowned, and theirs was so failing. They were starving over there, and they couldn't get the food that they needed. And so here you see the picture of Eisenhower out in the fields with Khrushchev, right? But they get to talking about communism. And see, I was alive during all this time, so I saw it firsthand on the reports and stuff. But what Khrushchev said about communism to Ezra Taft Benson is that his grandchildren would live under communism, that capitalism would fall into their hands like overripe fruit. And Ezra Taft Benson gave him a piece of his mind at the time. I don't exactly remember what it was he said, but it was amazing. Well, inside the Rothschild criminal cartel is a production here of a video I wanted to play for us, but I could not get it to work on I could not download it. That was the problem. And I could play it, but you know, if I play it over the internet while I'm trying to send it back out over the internet, things don't work so well because it hogs so much of the bandwidth. So maybe, I don't know if you can, but I'm going to try to play this. There's actually no soundtrack except music. So if we can read it as we go along, it's going to give us a really good overview. In fact, you could imagine what this would have done for people in junior high had their history teacher played this, like our history teacher played things. You know, we'd go into a room and it was darkened, and we'd play the 16mm films, right? I remember A Tale of Two Cities and other things that we saw in a bunch of World War II movies and all kinds of things that we probably didn't need to know. But boy, if we had had something like this and then had a discussion open up on it and had some books to read that were worthwhile, it would have really made a big difference. But of course, that would never happen because they got control of the education system and the textbooks and the curricula, you know, that we were to study. And so this would have never been part of it. But let's see what happens here.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back.
Now, you probably can't hear this audio. This is the beginning of the matrix, the blue and the red pill, right, that he's offering to this guy. And he's going to show him how deep the rabbit hole goes. But he says, you know, he can only show him the truth or something to that effect. It's a famous thing used by a lot of patriots. I've never seen the movie. Actually, ironically enough, my son says he has complete versions of, I guess there's more than one series, but anyway, he has it. Okay, so here's what Andrew was talking about. In 1790, Mayor Ansel Rothschild stated, "Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who writes its laws." And he's the same one that we're talking about that defrauded the investors over there in England in the days of Napoleon. Okay, so he says, you know, how important it is to get control of a nation's money. And so they had actually been doing this, trying to get control of America's money after we won the Revolutionary War. See, it didn't matter. They could come over here and get control of the money, and that would be better than the army. But in 1791, it says the Rothschilds get control of a nation's money. And so that becomes so critically important to understand. And I think the members of the Council of the 50 would have understood it, because these people who were, you know, contemporaries with them, but their writings were available, many of them understood it. And this guy says that Alexander Hamilton was their agent in George Washington's cabinet. Now, whether that's true or not, you know, we'd have to research that, but it's an assertion here that is made that's important to understand, because we know they have agents in every president's cabinet today. So how far back does that go? Was Alexander Hamilton an agent of the Rothschilds? I don't know for sure, but it's interesting and important to understand that it's possible.
Yeah, it seemed that he was. There's a lot of evidence that shows that by things he said, and then he was one of these guys that shut down the Articles of Confederation, which actually gave more power to the states, which where the states were more sovereign from the federal government. He said, no, we want the federal government to have more power, but really what he meant is that we want the federal government to declare that the central bank could control the issuance of the currency, as you guys could see there before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Now, does Christy get into this this depth of when she teaches the classes on the Constitution? Do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think so quite yet, because she's doing them at the church.
Oh, yeah.
And so
well, there you go. At the church. See, if we would have had it's pretty obvious. If we would have had the Council of the 50, right, the differences that we would see today.
Yeah, she probably is not, you know, the class would be discontinued if she brings up these things, I imagine.
Yeah, see, but if we would have had the Council of the 50, that wouldn't have been the case, because they would be coming down from the 12, from the 15, right? Oh, boy.
Uh-huh. Oh, doggy.
Okay, so when they set up a central bank in the USA called the First Bank of the United States, that's when Hamilton was in the cabinet of Washington. And so this is established, he says, with a 20-year charter. Then when they set up a central bank in the USA called the First Bank of the United States, well, that's a repetition of what we just read there, but I guess they changed the picture but not the text. So here we have the First Bank of the United States. They're trying to get control of the money, and they got a 20-year charter. Now, the charter for the Rothschild Bank of the United States runs out eventually, of course, in 1811, and Congress votes against its renewal. Imagine that. So Nathan Mayer Rothschild is not amused, and he then states, I guess this is a matter of the record, right? Either the application for the renewal of the charter is granted, or the United States will find itself involved in a most disastrous war. Ugh, that was their modus operandi in those days. Way before the United States, they used to finance kings to get them into debt so they could get their ways. And if the king then didn't pay the money back and the interest on the money, because they were sovereign, they'd just say, no, I'm not paying it back. Go stuff yourselves. You guys have ripped me off. Well, then they would soon find themselves with a war on their hands. See, that was really part of Gabriel Kolko's book that I read back in the early 70s. He was explaining this. He's a historian that just died here last May, but very famous historian that understood these things and wrote them in a book I was doing a report on called The Conservative Triumph. So he was talking about how they pit one king against the other, and of course, I think the way I found out about that book was through the John Birch Society. They used to really have a lot of good references in their books and things you could really study. And like I said, I've said it before, they were a public institution that got vilified, but the Council of the 50, which would have been doing this, would have been doing it in secret and wouldn't have been able to be vilified because they would be doing these things and teaching these things and taking action to prevent the effect on the saints in secret. So it would have been a lot different than the John Birch Society. But either let's go on. So
yeah, it's the same exact thing today. They fund. I don't know if you knew this. I'm sure you did, but the the granddaddy of George W. Bush was Prescott Bush, and in 1930, eventually in 1944, he was actually tried in the United States. This is Prescott Bush, granddad of George W., President of the United States, Bush, and he was actually put on trial for trading with the enemy because he was a central banker in New York, and he had loaned Hitler $7 billion, and that was the granddaddy of a president, and he actually started the CIA.
Yeah, see, and nobody knew that, and $7 billion in those days would be worth about how much in our day?
Ooh.
Probably $800 billion, anyway. Yeah. So that is amazing, and of course, if the people would have known it again, they would have risen up, but they couldn't know it because of the things that were going on. But the Council of the 50 might have been able to know it. But anyway, here we say, even though Rothschild threatens them, the United States stood firm, and the charter was not renewed. So that caused Nathan Mayer to issue another threat. Teach those impudent Americans a lesson, he said. Bring them back to colonial times. Is that what he said? No, I missed it. Sorry, what was that? Quote, bring them back. Bring them back to poverty, I think. Yeah, colonial status. We want them under our thumb. So in 1812, see, we don't teach much about the 1812 war in the United States classes. Probably nothing. I bet if you ask kids today what the 1812 war, oh
Yeah.
man, they
No,
don't know anything. They're so dumbed down. It's unbelievable. I thought we were dumbed down. Man, today they're dumbed down beyond belief.
I can't
Go
imagine.
ahead.
Well, I mean, I remember literally in college, and I graduated from college in 2005, and in high school, we learned about the War of 1812. Now, this was the question that they would ask. They'd say, well, when was the War of 1812? Something like that,
Yeah.
ridiculous.
The trivia associated with it had no meaning at all.
No, it's all this Hegelian dialectic that they use, and the media and the schools go right along with it, because, I mean, you're right. If we had the Council of One, I guess, with Ezra Taft Benson, and he's on the bottom ladder of the tower, like, let's climb up, and everyone's like, for what? We got cars, we got TV.
Well, yeah, exactly. He couldn't do anything because there wasn't unanimity among the brethren. They were fighting against him. But here, see, they would have known. It says the Rothschilds' plan was to cause the United States to build up such a debt in fighting this war that they would have to surrender to the Rothschilds. That was the lesson that should have been taught in school, but it also should have been taught in a Council of 50, so they would know. They're seeing the enemy, the preparations of the enemy, right? I mean, those people in that generation would have seen it, but imagine how well succeeding generations would have understood it as this was taught to them in the Council of the 50, and the Council of the 50 was seeing to it that the church didn't give over the education to the state, that they not only taught the gospel in the seminaries and institutes, but they taught history. This history, see? So anyway, it didn't happen.
Doug, I was on a forum last night talking to some people, and there were some people saying, hey, we should, I'm going to homeschool my kids, and I think that's the best way to do it. And I was agreeing with them, and a lot of people were saying, oh, what's wrong with public schools? You're too good for public schools. And, so I went online and I found the 10 planks of communism, and the 10th and final plank of communism to get your country into communism, the 10th one is public schools. It's written there right by Karl Marx. That's what he says.
Yeah. Well, see, the John Birch Society was teaching that, and Ezra Taft Benson and those people who were following his example and reading up on it with the materials that the John Birch Society had, they were aware of it, and so they started opposing it. But man, they were just demonized by the rest of the population, and it was too hard. Why, you can't accept something like that. And even me, I got to the point where I had to stop because I was seeing conspiracies everywhere. I was seeing enemies behind everything. And I had to raise my family, right? And I couldn't be paranoid about all this stuff. And I know a lot of the John Birch Society members were in that same situation. But it would have been different had we had the Council of the 50, because instead of it coming from the bottom up, it would have come from the top down, and policies would have been made, and manuals would have been written, and classes would have been held that would have included this stuff, and so on. But anyway, let's go on. And okay, I can't remember now what was continuing this, but
it's basically Andrew Jackson is now, I think, it was not renewed. And I think this might be Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, well, this is the 1812 war, and they were talking about it, and it says that they needed, so the United States allowed the charter for the Rothschild-owned First Bank in the United States to be renewed because they needed money for the war. See, so that was a win for Rothschild. Now, oh gosh, this thing. I'm sorry. It's if I stop it and start it, it fails on me for some reason. So I have to, let's see.
I've got some different information here too. Not different, but basically the same. But you know, following the conquest of Europe early in the 1800s, Rothschilds cast their covetous eye. You know, I'm reading an article here, and that's what it is. It's this covetous eye, which is the same covetous eye that these bankers have, that we read about in the Book of Mormon, that the secret combinations have. It's always to get gain. They murder, go to war to get gain, and they want to put the people in bondage.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to play this without stopping it. And
go.
Now what happened? Okay. And maybe we can keep it from dying. Let's just read it as we go on, and hopefully we can keep up with it. The Rothschilds' plan was to cause the United States to build up such a debt in fighting this war that they would have to surrender to the Rothschilds and allow the charter for the Rothschild-owned First Bank of the United States to be renewed. In 1816, the American Congress passed a bill permitting yet another Rothschild-dominated central bank, which gives the Rothschild another 20-year charter. This is called the Second Bank of the United States. The British war against America, therefore, ends with the deaths of thousands of British and American soldiers, but the Rothschilds get their bank. In 1832, President Andrew Jackson runs the campaign for his second term in the office under the slogan, "Jackson and no bank." This is a reference to his plan to take the control of the American money system to benefit the American people, not for the profiteering of the Rothschilds. 1833, President Andrew Jackson starts removing the government's deposits from the Rothschild-controlled Second Bank in the United States. Instead of deposits them into the bank directed by Democratic bankers. Democratic bankers. This causes the Rothschilds to panic, and so they do what they do best, contract the money supply, causing depression. President Jackson knows what they are up to and later states, "You are a den of thieves, vipers, and I intend to rout you out, and by the eternal God, I will rout you out." 1835, on January 30th, an assassin tries to shoot President Jackson, but the guns don't go off. In both cases, both of these guns, by both assassins, misfire. Now, what does that tell you?
God gave us a chance there for a second.
President Jackson would later claim that he knew the Rothschilds were responsible for the attempted assassination. 1836, following his years of fighting against the Rothschilds and their central bank in America, President Andrew Jackson finally succeeds in throwing the Rothschilds out. 1841, President John Tyler vetoed the act to renew the charter. I gotta stop it. I can't read it fast enough. The dodos.
Yeah, I can read it.
Enough time.
He goes on to receive hundreds of letters threatening him with assassination. This is
President
John Tyler.
Yeah, so all this time, see, the saints are, you know, of course, they're concerned with their own problems. They've gone through the Missouri problems and whatnot. But when we study church history, we're not able to see the context that they were in. They were probably seeing all this stuff. They were reading in the newspapers about the Rothschilds and the American fight to keep from being controlled by them, and there's a lot that went on, I'm sure, that would have been part of Joseph's understanding when he ran for president of the United States eventually in 1844. So anyway, so here we see this battling of the banksters against the presidents, trying to shoot him and threatening him with assassination. President Abraham Lincoln approaches the big banks in New York to try to obtain loans to support the ongoing Civil War. As these large banks were heavily under the influence of the Rothschilds, they offered him a deal, but he couldn't accept 24 to 36% interest that they wanted. So he's very angry about this high level of interest, and so he prints his own debt-free money and informs the public that this is now legal tender for both public and private debts. And by 1962, almost 500. We gave the people. I gotta try pausing it here. I can't keep up with it. We gave the people of this republic, he says, the greatest blessing they ever had, their own paper money to pay their own debts. See, he understood. And why do you think he was assassinated? I give you 3 guesses and 2 of them don't count.
Yep, the secret combination, banksters.
1863, President Abraham Lincoln discovers the Tsar of Russia, Alexander II, was having problems with the Rothschilds as well, as he was refusing their continual attempts to set up a central bank in Russia. Oh, man, if people could only understand, if they would have only understood this from the time they were 10, 11, and 12, 13 years old. But no, you know, gee. The Tsar then gives President Lincoln some unexpected help. The Tsar issued orders that if either England or France actively intervened in the American Civil War and helped the South, Russia would consider such an action a declaration of war. To show that he wasn't messing about, he sent a Pacific fleet. He sent the Pacific Fleet both to the eastern coast and, he sent his ships to both coasts, what it amounts to. So he was standing up and willing to align himself with the freedom of America, the leader of free America, against these banksters. And so in 1865, in a statement to Congress, Lincoln says, I have 2 great enemies, the Southern Army in front of me and the financial institutions behind me. I'd rather fight the one in front of me. Later that year, on April 14th, the president is assassinated less than 2 months before the end of the Civil War. Oh, man. They give us all these times to read, all this time to watch static pictures, but they don't give us enough time to read the text. In 1881, President James A. Garfield, the 20th President of the United States, who lasted only 100 days, states 2 weeks before he is assassinated, whoever controls the volume of money in our country is absolute master of all industry and commerce. And when you realize that the entire system is very easily controlled one way or another, by a few powerful men at the top, you will not have to be told how periods of inflation and depression originate. The Rothschilds then order the execution by the Bolsheviks. They control of Tsar Nicholas II and his entire family in Russia because of their revenge they wanted to get for from the Russian czars for standing up to America. And this is both to get control of the country and an act of revenge for Tsar Alexander I, blocking their world government plan in 1815 at the Congress of Vienna, and Tsar Alexander II siding with President Abraham Lincoln in 1864. In 1913, now we come. See, now here's the background. Now you have to understand that the Council of the 50 is at this point being terminated by John Taylor, or maybe before this point. See, so they dismissed it, saying it's just a debating society. We don't have any need for it. We don't need to understand these things. We've got to settle the frontier. We've got more pressing matters to take care of in our own place. Why do we have to have the quorum of the 12 and the first presidency, who are so tasked and burdened with the affairs of the kingdom of God, come and meet and debate these things? See, no, they didn't see it. They didn't understand it. They said there's no need for this, seeing it's a time of peace. Oh man, it's so clear.
I mean, that they don't see the importance of the hedge, which is the Constitution, which clearly states that the government, the central bank, should not be run by private central banks. The government should be able to issue the currency and then set the value thereof, which was what.
Yeah, and if they would have learned that while they were, see, those are the kinds of things that the prophet was teaching them. That's why William Clayton got so excited. You know, it was the article of Andrew Ehat was entitled "Almost Like Heaven on Earth," you know, because it was unbelievable as he was opening their minds up to the actual kingdom of God and the things that would enable people. You know how Alex Jones is always talking about how these people want to destroy humanity. They want to bring them back into serfdom. They don't want them to be educated. They don't want them to be capable and skillful and able to do all the things. You know, they want them to be their dumb servants. See, and so the opposite thing is what Joseph was instilling into the hearts and minds of the members of the Council of the 50 when they had organized it. And William Clayton was just ecstatic as he was listening to it. But without the inspiration of the prophet, these guys did not understanding that and having to subdue the Rocky Mountains, and you can't blame them. It was tough. They had a lot of things to do, but they should have not discontinued it. And even while it was, even before it was discontinued, they didn't meet very often. See, because they didn't understand it. But here now, after it had, I can't remember the exact date that it's discontinued, but I think it's before this, the 1913, that the last and current central bank in America, the Federal Reserve, is set up during the presidency of Woodrow Wilson. See, to hide it from the dumbed down people and distracted people so they didn't know that it was a central bank. They didn't call it a central bank, but it was a central bank, and it was called the Federal Reserve. And when we were born, we just thought it was a natural part of government, right? I mean, I thought it was federal, but we tried, when I learned that it was a private thing, that it had nothing to do with the government, I tried to tell people that. I had learned it from John Birch Society and from the book of Gabriel Kolko, and I could not convince people that it wasn't the Federal Reserve. Even people that should have known better, like professors and whatnot, that it wasn't part of the government, and there was no way you could find out. You know, it was like, oh, there you could not find any information on it. There was that book, and then the book that G. Edwards Griffin came out with later, right? That is
Yeah,
called, what's it?
the creature of Jekyll Island.
The
That's
creature Jekyll Island, and then he explained what Gabriel Kolko explained in that, and it became very popular. All right, I'm going to run through this real fast because we're running out of time. But here we see the 1913, the last and current central bank in America, the Federal Reserve, is set up during the presidency of Woodrow Wilson. And Gabriel tells how that was a conservative triumph. He calls the bankers conservative, and how they got Woodrow Wilson in there, who was a professor, so that they could get this act passed. That was the whole thing, you see. And then they went to Jekyll Island and wrote the whole act, and then they got it passed under his administration. But of course, at the same time, they had the income tax passed so that the American people would be enslaved and paying back the interest to under law. And the church, of course, goes along with it, because without the Council of the 50, the brethren grow up, they don't know this stuff. And so then, but here we come, and John Kennedy found out about it. And imagine how, I'd be really interested in knowing how he knew, but he knew. So in 1963, now we're coming to my time of life. I was just a young man in the military. But on June 4th, President John F. Kennedy signs Executive Order 11110, which returned to the United States government the power to issue currency without going through the Federal Reserve. Oh, that is so important. Can you imagine a history teacher in junior high stopping the class, stopping the film, and talking about this? How excited. Well, they show the films of the murder, but they don't ever talk about why, and how interesting this would have been to see this when we were kids.
Well, and it was backed by silver as well.
Yeah, yeah, real things.
Yeah.
It wasn't fiat currency.
That's right.
That relies primarily on covet means for expanding its territory, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources in the building of a...
Yeah, you're trying to play it because we can't hear nothing, but you're trying to play the speech where JFK exposes the secret societies.
It's just unbelievable. I forgot that there was this video on it, but it's Kennedy's speech. It's just so...
Yeah, we can't. Hey, Doug, we can't hear you too well.
Oh, yeah, because I turned it down because I get the feedback.
Okay, yeah, we're good.
So anyway, the point is that I am technically bound, so I can't do this. But we'll play that speech. Maybe you could look it up so you could play it, right? That speech of Kennedy's that was exposing the conspiracy. I mean, he was not only taking the power away from them, but he was exposing them. And
I got it right. I got it right here. I've got the short version as well.
Okay, go ahead and play whatever version we can hear.
Okay, I'm going to. It's got to load. We got a little 5-second little commercial.
I am so nervous right now.
Got a commercial here for a second. Oh, it's one of the 15-second ones, of course.
Well, I'll just go ahead and keep talking until you're ready. But the thing is, see, I didn't know anything about this. We didn't know anything. We were, raised as kids. I was not really interested in school because of the crap that they were giving us. It wasn't related to anything in life, I had a teacher, a history teacher, that had Coke bottle-sized glasses, and he didn't like it because I could pass all his tests, but he didn't like it because I wouldn't do his homework assignments. well, I would take the test gladly because I'd get good grades on them, but the homework was so boring. It would cover so much of history, and it was, you know, just memorizing events that didn't relate to us, that we couldn't relate to, and you had to be able to tell what happened when this particular thing happened and so on, and they were like the regular politics. Who cares if a certain act was passed or this act was passed? If they'd have been talking about this stuff, man alive, we would have been, you know, all ears.
I know, right? Everybody would have been so interested, and because some people say that, oh, if you awake, oh, you know, it's talking about negative things. No, you learn some highly interesting things that we're learning here, and it would have been great. But of course, public schools are a communist tenant, so the government's going to control it 100%. All right, do you want me to play this?
Yes, let's listen to it carefully.
All right, I can share my screen.
Yeah, if you want.
Okay, let me share it, and then I'm going to play it here. Come on, Google+.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed. and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. What a difference it would have made had people understood and taken out the banksters before they could have taken him out. But that's the lesson that we get from the God, the living God of Israel, that the man has to have his own free will to choose. And the Lord works around that, but he does not interfere into the world's, the affairs of men. Now that doesn't mean that he doesn't intervene. He does intervene. He has his will too, and he is the sovereign, so he can do the things that will bring this world finally to the final state of exaltation, and he will wipe every tear from the eyes of mankind. But he can't override the choices of his children. And that's a very, very important and sometimes difficult lesson to learn. Well,
you know what? Can I mention something real quick, Doug?
Yeah, go ahead.
Watchman, at the end of that speech, he says, well, it's not far away and foreign. It's now close at home and local. And what he meant by that was that, hey, what I'm talking about is not Russian communism. This is secret societies within our own country. So he was clarifying it there for the people that would say, oh, he's talking about communism. No, he was not. He was talking about the machinations, the secret combinations, the Gadiantons in our government, and they killed him for it. And because they're cunning, and they had their tower built, and we didn't.
Exactly. So that's a very good point. And he was talking about the impact that technology has. And technology was bringing the news from around the world. And so people could see and understand the events. But, of course, you know, the same people that were seeking to gain control of the American presidency were gaining, and who had already gained control of much of the other institutions of the country, the educational institutions, and the other political institutions, and even the religious institutions and the military institutions. They were everywhere because they had the founder of their work is the devil. And so when we listen to people that were part of that, that are still alive and that can tell us how they function, we see how they infiltrate everything, and they are able to work in secret, and we don't know. You know, we think they're like us, but they're not. and they are not working for our good, but they're working for our demise. And had we had the tower, this is the point of today's show, right? Had we had the tower during this time, if it hadn't have been discontinued in the early 1900s, but had been continued, and the council was seeing and understanding what was happening in these instances, and they would have understood what, obviously they would have understood what President Kennedy it was saying, and if they didn't, they would have somebody there to explain to them what he was saying and the importance of what he was saying. And you can use your own imaginations to create the scenes that could have been, the things that could have been had we had the tower. But just as the parable says, we didn't have the tower, and so as a result, the servants of the Lord fell asleep and didn't realize what was coming upon them. And now our Constitution, our hedge protecting the religious freedom by which the vineyard could continue to produce its fruit, has been broken down. And the enemy will soon be upon us. It's already upon us, but in the sense that the servants of the Lord will flee. That's the next thing that happened. And then after that, the 12 are broken down. And then after that, the works of the servants, which we can see and admire, in many, many ways, from buildings and organizations and so on, and good works of relieving the poor and relieving the needs, or meeting the needs of those who've been hit by natural disasters, and all the capability to build temples all over the world and everything that amaze people, even to this day, will all be destroyed. Those are the works of the servants of the Lord, and they're going to be destroyed. I don't know how many temples will go down. I don't know how, if any. I don't know how many chapels will be destroyed. I don't know how many saints will give their lives, but it's not going to be pretty. And the good news is the Lord will come and call his servant Joseph and say, go and rouse up go and gather, that's the word I was looking for. Go and gather my servants, my young men, my warriors, my young men, my middle-aged men, and all those except those whom I have commanded to tarry, and come and redeem my vineyard. And inasmuch as mine enemies gather together against you, avenge me of mine enemies. For this is my vineyard, I paid money for it, and throw down their towers and break down their hedges and avenge me of mine enemies. So anyway, pretty exciting things. I don't know how much of it we'll live to see, but for sure we know this much, that the kingdom of God, it will continue to roll forth until it fills the whole earth, as Daniel saw in his vision. Well, I hope you have a good day. We keep going way overtime on these things, but hopefully you will be able to learn something from all this. And so I want to wish everybody a good day. But if you have something to add, Roy or Andrew, feel free to do that, and then we'll close it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you that it doesn't look good, but, and it does say in the Book of Mormon that he's going to destroy the things that are made by the fingers. Specifically, it says the fingers of man, and that's buildings, and that's a lot of things.
The works of their hands, yeah, exactly.
That's right. We don't want to think about, but that is the truth, and so now we have to make sure that we just stay connected. Go ahead, Roy.
I didn't realize that Kennedy said all that until you said it, Doug, and then we're listening to it, and then I remember when he talked, because I had forgot about that, because he was such a nice guy, because I got an opportunity to see him there in Pueblo. and watched him come into the stadium over there. I watched him on the street when he came in the car, and then he went down there and was talking about the Frying Pan Arkansas project. And so I got to go to the stadium, go down there and watch him there at the stadium. At Uncle Buster's house.
Oh, wow. Yeah, see, I was in the military. I missed all that. Even Kay remembers.
Yeah.
She used to keep in drawers. She used to have drawers full of newspaper clippings on and things that he said. But of course, you wouldn't have heard these things because they would have never been put on TV. You wouldn't have been able to sit down and hear somebody. You know, there wouldn't have been like a CNN or a C-SPAN where you would be able to, because you didn't have cable. It was just what came over the air, and there was no way they were going to devote airtime to Kennedy. He was a Democrat, remember? And anyway, it's sad. Now later we find out. See, they didn't realize that we would find out later because of the internet and YouTube. Right. Man, that's really been. I didn't know these things. I didn't know any of it. I don't know anybody that knew any of it except for John Birch Society people. They might have known it, but a lot of times they were wrong. And they would accuse the wrong people.
Yeah, I remember the John Birch Society in high school.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Well, man, interesting stuff, right? So next time on Enemies from, or the Enemies of Zion, we'll get into, I wanted to actually play it today, but the technical things slowed us down so much. But there is a clip here by G. Edward Griffin, and not Griffin, Griffith? Yeah, whatever his name is.
Yeah, you got it right, G. Edward Griffin.
Yeah, we see our uncle, Roy will remember our uncle, Tommy was named Griffin, see? So, G. Edward Griffin, I don't know if there's any relation. Yeah, I don't know I doubt if there was any relation, but he was from New York, and this guy said, I love to listen to G. Edward Griffin talk. He has a tremendous voice, and it's just it's silk, it's smooth, and I can't describe it or characterize it, but it's very, very pleasing to listen to him talk for me. But anyway, we're gonna say goodbye, and as always, I hope everybody has a good day. My prayer is that the Lord's choicest blessings will be with us all in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.